Welcome to World Epic History. Today, we journey back into the ancient forests and river valleys of northern Europe, where the story of the Germanic peoples began. Long before kingdoms and empires rose, these tribes forged their identity through kinship, honor, and survival. From humble villages to legendary warriors, they became the tribes that shaped the destiny of Europe. This is the epic tale of the Germanic peoples, ancient, resilient, and unforgettable. The story of the Germanic peoples began deep in the forests and river valleys of northern Europe. Long before kingdoms rose and fell, these ancient tribes of Europe forged their identity through kinship, warfare, and oral tradition. Their roots stretched back to prehistoric migrations, where survival meant adapting to harsh winters and fertile lowlands. This was the dawn of early Germanic history, a time when culture and community were inseparable. The Germanic peoples lived in scattered tribal villages. Unlike Rome or Greece, they did not build monumental cities. Instead, their strength lay in loyalty to chieftains and clan. Their European tribal culture valued bravery, honor, and hospitality, woven into stories passed by skalds and bards. This simplicity did not mean weakness. It created societies both resilient and fierce, ready to endure and expand. As centuries passed, Roman historians began noticing these northern neighbors. To the Romans, the ancient tribes of Europe appeared both barbaric and noble, living free beyond imperial frontiers. Their warriors, tall and fierce, carried spears and shields into battle. Roman generals feared their raids, but also admired their discipline and loyalty to kin. Thus, the Germanic peoples entered the written record, both enemies and symbols of uncorrupted strength. The early Germanic history was marked by their migration across rivers and forests. They were skilled farmers, hunters, and herders, living close to the land. Their villages thrived on cattle, grain, and simple crafts. While Rome built stone roads, the Germanic peoples relied on forest paths and riverboats. This balance of hardship and resourcefulness shaped their independence, preparing them for the great migrations that would one day transform Europe. Among the Germanic peoples, warriors held the highest honor. Their courage in battle defined not only personal reputation, but the survival of their tribe. Young men trained with spear and shield, eager to defend kin and claim glory. The chiefs, often chosen by valor, led their followers into raids or defense. Through combat, alliances were forged and legends were born, giving shape to the heroic traditions of early Germanic history. The Gothic tribes emerged as one of the most influential branches of the Germanic peoples. Originating near the Baltic, the Goths migrated southward, clashing with Rome and carving out kingdoms. Their story was one of ambition and resilience. From the Visigoths who sacked Rome in 410 AD to the Ostrogoths, who ruled Italy. In them, the ancient tribes of Europe became a force that reshaped the destiny of empires. The Vandals, another Germanic tribe, carried a name that would echo for centuries. Known for their seafaring raids, they swept across Gaul, Spain, and into North Africa. In 455 AD, they famously plundered Rome, cementing their reputation. Yet behind the violence lay skilled organization and adaptability, turning them into rulers of a Mediterranean kingdom. The Vandals and Saxons together symbolized the restless energy of the migration period. The Saxons, fierce Germanic warriors from the north, took to the seas. Their raids struck the coasts of Britain, where they later settled and mingled with local tribes. The Saxons carried with them traditions of freedom and kinship, shaping the identity of early England. Alongside Angles and Jutes, they formed a new culture. The Vandals and Saxons revealed how the migration period was a crucible of transformation for Europe. The migration period was a storm that swept across Europe. Between the 4th and 6th centuries, waves of Germanic peoples moved into Roman lands. Driven by hunger, war, and pressure from the Huns, they sought new homelands. This mass movement toppled provinces, reshaped borders, and created kingdoms from Spain to Britain. It was not only a migration, but the rebirth of Europe, carried on the shoulders of ancient tribes. Among the most famous encounters came at Adrianople in 378 AD. The Gothic tribes crushed a Roman army, slaying Emperor Valens. This battle shocked the ancient world. For centuries, Rome seemed invincible, yet here the Germanic peoples proved their strength. It was a turning point in early Germanic history, when tribes once dismissed as barbarians stood as equal rivals to the empire. Europe would never be the same. The collapse of Rome opened doors for Germanic kingdoms. Visigoths ruled Spain, Ostrogoths ruled Italy, Vandals ruled North Africa, and Franks began their rise in Gaul. Each tribe adapted Roman law, religion, and language, blending them with their own traditions. This merging of European tribal culture with Roman legacy created the foundations of medieval Europe. What began as wandering tribes became the architects of kingdoms. The Franks stood out among the Germanic peoples. Under Clovis, they embraced Christianity, gaining the support of the Church. This alliance gave them legitimacy and power, securing their place in early Germanic history. From these beginnings grew the mighty Frankish kingdom, ancestor to modern France and Germany. The Franks showed how ancient tribes of Europe could transform into builders of nations that endured long after Rome's fall. Yet the memory of these tribes lived not only in battles and kingdoms, but in sagas and myths. Germanic skalds sang of heroes, gods, and ancestors. Tales of Woden, Thor, and heroic deeds gave meaning to life and death. These stories, rooted in European tribal culture, preserved identity through centuries of upheaval. They were not just warriors, but storytellers, carrying the spirit of their people into legend. The Saxons, Angles, and Jutes reshaped the island of Britain. After Rome withdrew, these Germanic tribes crossed the sea, settling among the ruins of Roman towns. From their settlements grew the Anglo-Saxon kingdoms, where European tribal culture blended with Celtic traditions. The language, customs, and laws they established became the roots of English identity. Here, the legacy of the migration period left an enduring mark on history. Across Scandinavia, other Germanic peoples thrived, ancestors of the Vikings. These northern tribes lived by fishing, farming, and trading, bound to the seas. Their rugged land shaped fierce independence. While their great age of expansion lay centuries ahead, already their European tribal culture fostered courage, exploration, and resilience. In fjords and forests, the seeds of future conquests and sagas were planted, linking them to the broader story of early Germanic history. Religion played a central role in Germanic life. Before Christianity, the Germanic peoples worshipped gods of war, thunder, and fate. Sacred groves and ritual feasts bound communities together. Their myths spoke of Valhalla, of warriors honored after death. Such beliefs reflected the harsh realities of their world and the values of courage and loyalty. These traditions became the spiritual foundation of their European tribal culture, later merging with Christian faith. By the 6th century, the migration period gave way to new stability. Germanic kingdoms became the heirs of Rome, blending tribal customs with imperial institutions. Gothic tribes preserved Roman law, while the Franks spread Christianity. Vandals and Saxons left their marks in Africa and Britain. The ancient tribes of Europe no longer stood at Rome's frontier. They now ruled where emperors once commanded, shaping the dawn of medieval Europe. The legacy of the Germanic peoples lived on in language. Modern German, English, Dutch, and the Scandinavian tongues all trace their roots to early Germanic history. These languages carried with them not only words, but the worldview of the tribes who first spoke them. The migration period ensured their survival, scattering dialects across Europe. From epic poems to everyday speech, the voices of ancient tribes still echo today. Art and craft revealed another side of Germanic culture. From intricate jewelry to carved runestone, the Germanic peoples expressed identity through symbols. Their patterns reflected nature spirals, animals, and interwoven knots. These designs carried meaning, linking tribes to ancestors and gods. The artistry of ancient tribes of Europe survived through burial treasures and hoards, showing that they were not only warriors, but creators, shaping beauty in the midst of hardship. Women played vital roles in Germanic tribal life. They managed farms, preserved traditions, and in some cases, held prophetic power. Roman writers often remarked on the respect given to women among the tribes. Queens like Brunhild and legendary figures in sagas influenced politics and war. Through family, ritual, and leadership, women carried forward the European tribal culture, ensuring survival through times of turmoil and migration. The Huns forced Germanic tribes into desperate movement, yet this crisis created opportunity. Pressed from the east, tribes like the Goths and Vandals poured into Roman provinces. In this crucible, alliances shifted and empires trembled. The migration period became a test of resilience, where Germanic peoples endured foreign pressure and forged new destinies. Their survival marked not the end of early Germanic history, but its dramatic transformation. As kingdoms rose, law became a legacy. The Germanic peoples wrote down tribal codes, Visigothic law, Salic law, Lombard codes. These blended Roman principles with tribal justice. Trial by combat, wergild payments, and kinship rights defined their European tribal culture. Though often harsh, these laws stabilized kingdoms and influenced medieval Europe. From these beginnings, modern European legal traditions carried echoes of the ancient tribes of Europe. Religion shifted as Christianity spread. Missionaries crossed forests to reach Germanic villages. Slowly, pagan rites gave way to baptism, churches, and monasteries. Yet traces of old gods lingered in folklore and language. The fusion of Christian Rome with Germanic belief created a cultural foundation for medieval Europe. From Gothic bishops to Saxon conversions, faith became a bridge between the ancient tribes of Europe and the new world to come. By the early Middle Ages, Germanic kingdoms became Europe's new powers. The Gothic tribes, Vandals and Saxons had left their mark, while the Franks rose to dominance. Their legacy was not only in conquest, but in culture, language, and law. What began as scattered ancient tribes of Europe had reshaped a continent. The migration period closed, but its influence lived on in every realm that followed. Thus ended the great story of the Germanic peoples. From humble beginnings in forests and rivers to kingdoms that shaped Europe, their journey was one of resilience, migration, and transformation. The Gothic tribes, Vandals, and Saxons, once dismissed as barbarians, became founders of nations. Their early Germanic history lives on in languages, laws, and legends. These ancient tribes of Europe not only survived, they built the very foundations of the continent we know today.